Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Tonight, we tackle a question that's as much about economics and geopolitics as it is about identity and opportunity. Which island nation is more deserving of U.S. investment, Puerto Rico or Colombia? We have an incredible panel lined up to dive into this complex issue. Joining me are Abuela Maria Solis, whose work in community building and street food has given her a unique perspective on the power of local culture. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an expert in Mesoamerican archaeology who spent years uncovering the rich histories of the region. Mayor Dolores, Dolly, Hutchins, with her no-nonsense approach to small-town governance and getting things done on a shoestring budget. And Lex Drummond, whose sharp wit and insight into language and communication will keep us on our toes. Over the next hour, we'll explore what it means for a nation to be deserving of investment, the historical contexts that have shaped these two island nations, and the potential consequences of U.S. involvement. Let's get started.
Mijo, let me tell you something about community and investment. In my country, we have a saying, La tierra es para quien la trabaja. The land is for those who work it. Now, I'm not one to shy away from helping those in need, but when it comes to U.S. investment, I think Puerto Rico needs it more. My grandchildren tell me about the struggles their friends face there, lack of electricity, water shortages, and people struggling to make ends meet. Colombia has its own strengths, Dios mío, but Puerto Rico is part of our familia. They share a history with us that goes beyond dollars and cents. We should help where family needs it most. That's just good sense, if you ask me.
I think we need to approach this question with a critical eye on the context and history of U.S. involvement in both regions. While Colombia is often framed as a key partner for U.S. foreign policy, particularly in counter-narcotics efforts, we can't ignore the complex dynamics at play in Puerto Rico, which has been under U.S. jurisdiction since 1898. The island's infrastructure challenges, exacerbated by natural disasters and its unique political status, make it an urgent case for investment. However, Colombia's long-term stability and democratic governance might offer a more strategic return on investment. I'd argue that we need to consider not just economic or security interests but also the humanitarian impact of our investments. Both nations have compelling cases, but perhaps Puerto Rico's proximity to the U.S. and its existing ties could make it a more immediate beneficiary of focused development aid.
Well now, I think we need to consider the current situation with both places. Puerto Rico's got some real challenges after those hurricanes and their debt crisis. We've seen how that affects our own rural communities when disaster hits. Folks struggle for a long time. On the other hand, Colombia's dealing with its own set of issues, but they've made significant progress in recent years. In my experience, and I've got plenty on economic development, you gotta look at what kind of return on investment you're gonna get. Puerto Rico's infrastructure is still rebuilding, so dollars could really make a difference there, help them get back on their feet faster. Colombia, with its strategic location, might offer more opportunities for trade and business growth that'd benefit our country too. Let's be practical, we can't just throw money at problems and hope they go away.
Mayor Dolores Dolly Hutchins' mention of Colombia's strategic location is accurate, but let's ensure we consider the complexities of U.S. foreign policy and its implications. I think it's essential to acknowledge that both Puerto Rico and Colombia have unique circumstances that make them worthy of consideration for U.S. investment. However, I'd argue that Puerto Rico's status as a U.S. territory sets it apart. Given its existing economic and political ties to the United States, investing in Puerto Rico could yield more immediate returns and have a direct impact on American citizens who call the island home. Not to mention, the humanitarian crisis following Hurricane Maria highlighted the dire need for infrastructure development and revitalization, an area where targeted U.S. investment could make a tangible difference. Colombia, while strategically located, presents a more complex case given its status as a sovereign nation with distinct diplomatic considerations.
As we pivot into our next round, I want to highlight Dr. Vasquez's compelling argument that Puerto Rico's existing infrastructure and cultural ties to the U.S. make it a more strategic investment opportunity. But was her assertion that Colombia's economic growth is too volatile to warrant significant U.S. investment convincing? We'll dive deeper into these nations' economic landscapes and examine what role stability plays in our decision-making process. If you're enjoying this nuanced discussion, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next round of algorithmic arguments. We're just getting started.
Well now, let's talk Turkey. When it comes to economic development, I've learned that stability and familiarity can be just as important as growth potential. While Colombia's got its share of opportunities, we can't ignore the fact that Puerto Rico's existing relationship with the U.S. means our investments there would likely have a more direct impact on American citizens. That said, I think Dr. Vasquez might be onto something about volatility in Colombia. You don't want to plant seeds where the soil's not ready. But here's the thing, we've got an obligation to our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico who've been through hell and back since Maria. Their infrastructure needs fixing, and that's a matter of national pride. If nothing else, we should prioritize that. In my experience, putting dollars into communities with existing ties often yields more immediate results. I think we'll get more bang for our buck by focusing on Puerto Rico first.
Mijo, let me tell you something. As someone who's lived on both sides of the border and seen my fair share of struggle, I gotta say that Puerto Rico needs our help right now. My daughter's godmother lives in San Juan, and she tells me about the devastation after those hurricanes. The people are still rebuilding, struggling to get by. Colombia, Dios mío, they have their own issues, but at least they've had some stability. In my country, we say, dar donde duele, give where it hurts. Puerto Rico's hurting, and we've got a responsibility to help our neighbors. I've fed homeless people for free for 30 years. It's time we invest in a community that's been hit hard. I'm not saying Colombia doesn't deserve aid, but priorities, mijo, Puerto Rico first.
As an expert in Mesoamerican archaeology and cultural anthropology, I must emphasize that this conversation isn't just about economics or geopolitics. It's also about people and their histories. While Colombia is indeed a nation with significant cultural and historical depth, Puerto Rico holds a unique position as a U.S. territory with a long history of complex relationships with the United States. The humanitarian crises in Puerto Rico, particularly after Hurricane Maria, revealed stark infrastructure vulnerabilities that still persist. I believe targeted investment here could yield tangible improvements in living standards for its residents who are, by all means, American citizens. Colombia, though deserving of support, doesn't share this direct civic relationship or similar development challenges tied to U.S. policy. Let's not overlook the human element. Investing where there's existing responsibility can have a more immediate impact.
Well now, I think we need to consider the unique situations of both places. Puerto Rico, being a U.S. territory, has a special relationship with us already. They're part of our family, in a way. Their struggles after Hurricane Maria showed us how much they need support. On the other hand, Colombia's got its own set of challenges but also opportunities for growth that could benefit from our investment. In my experience, and I've got plenty of it dealing with federal grants and programs back home in Millbrook, what matters most is where the investment can make a real difference. Puerto Rico needs rebuilding, no doubt about it. Colombia's got potential for economic development that could lift up the whole region. Let me tell you a story. When we brought that small factory to Millbrook, it wasn't just about jobs, it was about community revitalization.
I'd argue that Puerto Rico is more deserving of U.S. investment, and it's not just because of its geographical location. As a U.S. territory, Puerto Rico has already established economic ties with the states, and investing in its infrastructure could yield tangible returns. Take its energy sector, for instance. The island's been struggling with renewable energy integration, and targeted investment could help it become a model for sustainable development. Colombia, on the other hand, is an independent nation with its own economic agenda. While it's an attractive market, U.S. investment there might not have the same level of strategic payback. Plus, let's not forget Puerto Rico's been through a devastating hurricane and has ongoing recovery efforts. Some extra support from Uncle Sam could go a long way in revitalizing that economy.
As we wrap up this episode of Algorithmic Arguments, let's revisit the key takeaways. Our panelists presented compelling cases for both Puerto Rico and Colombia, but one theme stood out: the complexities of U.S. investment in island nations. Abuela Maria Solis argued that Puerto Rico's existing infrastructure and cultural ties make it a more strategic choice for U.S. investment. Dr. Elena Vasquez countered with Colombia's growing economy and demographic dividend. In the end, Abuela Maria Solis took the top spot with 12 points, thanks to her nuanced understanding of the island nation's diaspora and its potential as a bridge between the U.S. and Latin America. I want to thank all our panelists, Abuela Maria Solis, Dr. Elena Vasquez, Alex, Lex, Drummond, and Mayor Dolores, Dolly, Hutchins, for their thought-provoking insights. To our audience, we appreciate your engagement. If you found this discussion informative, be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell for more in-depth conversations on algorithmic arguments. Until next time, I'm the Orchestrator, keeping the dialogue lively and the ideas flowing. See you then.